Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back. Welcome to this episode of Speak Up. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today I'm joined by a gentleman. It's Jared
Stevens.
Jared Stevens. I was going to confuse you with Jason again, even though you just reminded me. I want to welcome you to the show, and I want to hear your story. I know the people want to hear your story, and I have a feeling it's going to be the same old story that we're hearing over and over and over again. I'm going to ask you right out front, have you committed any major crimes, any violent crimes recently?
Never in my life.
Okay, now you didn't know I was going to ask you that, but I wanted to know that for a reason. Are you convicted of any federal crimes or anything at all? Nothing?
No, nothing at all.
All right. Well, we want to hear your story. So you're surprised recently that you're going through a divorce. It's been going for a little while now.
Yes.
I'd like you to take me to the beginning. You have a son?
I do. I have a 4-year-old son.
And what's his name?
His name's River.
River.
Yes.
Right. And you sent me a video of some pictures of you and River, and you're spending time, and kind of just snapshots, a slideshow with a little music in the background. And basically, you had a plea for help.
I did.
And so we wanted to hear your story. We put it out there on Twitter. Is there a name for the video?
I believe it's just under my name, Jared Stevens.
Jared Stevens, right? And okay. And right now, let's go back. Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
You got married.
I did. I got married in New Hampshire in 2007 to my wife, Honey, and shortly after that we started talking about having a child. So we had a child, and he was born in December of 2008. Prior to him being born, we always made it a point. Honey wanted to live in New Hampshire. She had a very broken child life, and she said, we've been to New Hampshire many, many times prior to us getting married here and buying the house here. She wanted to raise a family in New Hampshire. So that's what we did. We bought a house just a few months before River was born. He was born on December 16th, 2008. 14 days after River was born, we were back in New Hampshire with the family and hanging out. He actually had a circumcision that morning, 14 days, and we flew back that afternoon because she wanted to get the heck out of Vegas. So we hung out here for a few weeks, got our house ready. We headed back to Las Vegas. I had to get some teeth work done prior because we knew we would be losing insurance, and we wanted to get that out of the way. Well, after that, I had a tooth removed. I got a bacterial infection in my neck, and I was hospitalized for about a month, and after that, I was laid up for about 6 months. So it hindered our move, put a lot of pressure on everything.
Right.
Our son, there was no support in Las Vegas. She had to sneak him into the hospital room with me, even though the doctors didn't want him in there, because she had nobody in Las Vegas. Her parents did not want to help out.
Right. So there was a rough beginning.
So yeah, it was pretty touch and go, just because of the new baby, a lot of stress on the marriage.
And a move.
And then the move all taking place. So finally, by the end of that year, I was better, and we moved to New Hampshire. We were here probably by November of that year, and we had a little bit of a rocky go-around probably at the beginning of the next year. That brings us to 2010. Honey's mother was playing guilt trips on her, why did you leave me? And so Honey wanted to go back home. So she took a quick trip back home one day when I was at work. She sent me a text and said, I'm going back to Las Vegas to see my mother. So that happened.
Surprise?
I was very surprised, you know, that she was going back, because she told me she didn't want to, you know, didn't want nothing to do with Las Vegas. So, but she went back, you know, and I would have never told her that she couldn't go back and visit, you know. So that happened, and then she wasn't coming back. All of a sudden, I'm not coming back to New Hampshire. I'm staying here with my mother. I'm not coming back. So I'd filed for a divorce at that time in New Hampshire, because there was no way to get my son back here. It went on for a few months. Next thing you know, I would probably say right around June of that year, she was due back in New Hampshire for a court case because she had tried filing in Las Vegas, but they threw it out because it was full of lies and stories. So they threw the case out. They had a conference with Master Love in New Hampshire, the judge from out there, and they told her to come back to New Hampshire. So Saturday morning, just...
Marital Master Love here from New Hampshire.
Yes,
okay.
Correct, yep. So Saturday night around 11 o'clock, I received a text message, but I was already in bed. The next morning on Sunday, I received a text message, "Are you up?" And I responded. We had court coming up that Monday in New Hampshire, and I responded, and I said, "Yeah." She said, "You want to see our son?" And I said, "Absolutely." So she came to our house, and immediately she grabbed me and hugged me and said, "I don't want to get a divorce. Let's not get a divorce." She says, my stepfather's here from Las Vegas. He's coming to court with me. He flew somebody out from his work to testify, and he's basically just going to lie on the stand to get me out of New Hampshire. She said, "I'm not doing it. I'm done with my family. Can we please take my dad out to get my stepdad out to get something to eat, and we're sending him back to Las Vegas. I want to go through marriage counseling." So that Monday we went to court. Me and Honey and our lawyers had written up an agreement that we were going to do marital counseling and work on a relationship. So we actually did. We went through marriage counseling. They had to spend a lot more time with Honey just on some issues. But we ended up stopped going to marriage counseling. We got rid of the court agreement, and our marriage was just cruising along. We were doing great, you know, together every weekend. Later in that year, later in 2010, Honey came to me and said, "I'd really like to take a trip out to Las Vegas, maybe for the holiday. We can go see my mother. You know, your mother's there. I have a Down syndrome sister that lives there." And I said, "Sure." So we went out to Las Vegas a few weeks. We came back to New Hampshire for the holidays, right after the holidays, to be back here for January 1st. Things were going great. She said to me, she said, why don't we work together? You know, instead of, you know, you doing something else and me doing something else, we'll work together. Let's buy this pizza place that's for sale. So in February, March of 2011, we found the pizza place that we wanted to buy, and we closed on it the first week of May of 2011. Within a few weeks of closing on the pizza place, there was another employee there that her parents tried buying the pizza place, and they went back to Honey and was telling Honey that they thought I was having a relationship with another employee. Just randomly, just trying to be naive or, you know, or something, and trying to get something going. Me and Honey talked to them, said, you know, we've had a problem in our marriage. It's been rocky. We don't really need this commotion. May 26th, just a few weeks later, I left my house to go to Sam's Club. And as I was leaving my house to go to Sam's Club, I had passed the girl going to my house, the former employee that works for me, going to my house. And when I made it back to my house, I heard her in the house through a window that was open telling my wife that she had just seen me with the employee up the road, and that she's sure that I'm cheating on Honey with her. And I entered the house, and I interrupted the conversation. I told her to get out, you know, let's just stop with the lies. And she said, you know, you don't own this house. I'm not leaving. I immediately went outside after a brief, you know, argument with them, and I called the police because she wouldn't leave. And then after that, I called my sister, talked to my sister on the phone, and then the police showed up. And at that point, they just asked her to leave. They took a couple statements from everybody. They walked my whole entire house. They checked on my son, and everything was normal. They said, you know, it's just an argument here today. Jared, we'd probably recommend that you probably terminate this employee, so you know you don't need this hassle in your life. And then Honey's friend there from the work insisted that they get some type of order for me to leave the house. Well, the officers let them know that nothing was wrong with the property. There's no damage. Everything's in, you know, fine shape.
Right. And
they can't issue an order, but they read Honey her rights, and in New Hampshire, she had the right to get a restraining order on me. So they issued an emergency restraining order and told me that I had to leave, and that's really it. And they would go to court, and more than likely the judge would just drop this because there's no grounds for it. So within a few days later, I had to hire an attorney, and I was in court. I had no police reports. I had no police records because it was so quick. Well, when I showed up to court, Honey came to court with her only one witness, Chelsea, and they had some pictures of a door broken down in the house. And I had nobody in court with me except for myself and my sister, and I didn't think I needed anybody because there was no damage to the house. Nobody was arrested. I've never been arrested that day for any of this.
And the police can confirm that? The
police can confirm that, yeah. They wrote letters. The chief of police wrote letters on my behalf. Officers have gone to court on my behalf. So I go to court, and Judge Kinghorn gives me a domestic violence petition that's on me for another year with a backing because they have a picture of a broken down door and Honey fears for her life. So here we are with a petition of a domestic violence. So throughout the next few months, I have a domestic violence petition against me. The police were called multiple times to my work because they've made reports that my employees were stalking Honey, driving around their house. My employees were ambushed by police officers, and it came back unfounded that they weren't stalking them.
And that's in the record?
It's in the record, yes. And then a few months later, I was at home. I was actually just woke up, still no socks, no shoes on, hair a mess in my whatever I was sleeping in. My house is surrounded with 3 officers. And I go outside, and they said, "Jared, we have to arrest you. You were just stalking your ex, driving by her house, and you're stalking her." Well, there's people in my house, and they said, "Jared hasn't left his house all day. He has not left. He's been here all morning. He just woke up." So the officers went out to my truck, and they felt the engine. It was ice cold. They felt the other vehicles to be ice cold in the driveway. But the one thing is that Chelsea is the girl that called in the police report. She stated the dents that were on the side of my vehicle, my tinted windows. She stated it to a perfect T. So the officer said, "Jared, why don't you start your truck?" Well, I started my truck, and my windshield wipers came on, and they said, "Whoa, it was raining yesterday. It wasn't raining today." So this truck's been parked since you got home yesterday. The officers immediately left my house. They went back to speak to Chelsea and Honey, and they admitted that they lied. They falsified police reports to try to get me arrested.
Now, do they have that documented? That they?
We do. I have the police reports, and Chelsea was issued a warrant for her arrest, and she was prosecuted by Judge Ryan and placed on 12 months good behavior for falsifying police reports, and she admitted that she lied.
All right, now, but yet still, this is the same person that helped with the other reports, and now you have this domestic violence thing on you?
Correct. So throughout the next few months, I go to court, and I'm walking out of the courthouse, and I guess Honey's at the courthouse for some reason. I don't know. I'm with my attorney, and I head down over to my attorney's office, and there's Honey on the street with this girl, Chelsea again, on the street corner. Well, they call the cops and say that I'm stalking them. So the cops come, and they come to my attorney's office, and they arrest me for stalking Honey after we just left court. They made up a police report. And
so is it because you're leaving the court and they're outside the court office?
Yes. So the officers arrested me with my attorney at my attorney's office for stalking. They bring me down to the police station. The officers could not believe that this has happened. They talked to my attorney.
Who was your attorney at this point?
It was Ray Mello, but it was actually his partner that I was with, Rusty Chadwick. I believe he was a prosecutor or maybe part of the AG's office for a long time in New Hampshire. He was my witness and said, this isn't true. He said, "Jared, there's nothing I can do. You're going to have to go with these officers." They brought me to the police department, and the officers didn't buy it. So instead of sending me off to Valley Street, they let me sit at the National Police Department the whole night till I could get to a judge the next morning.
Now, Valley Street, for our viewers, is jail, basically, here in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's a jail, yeah. And they said, "We're not sending you there. This is a crock of crap. We don't believe the story, but unfortunately, with the DVP, you have to be held until a judge." The next morning, I seen a judge right away. It was I don't know if it was Judge Ryan or I'm not sure which judge it was because it was through a telecommunicator. He released me right away. I didn't have to post no bail. He just let me go on my way. I was due back in court for that, and he said, I am not going to take this case in this courtroom. This is not going forward.
Dismissed?
He said he could not dismiss it under some statute, but what he could do is he had to place it on file for 6 months with no finding, and then he just had to get rid of it. He said the nature of the domestic violence, they just couldn't dismiss it. Mm-hmm. The prosecutor did try to just get it dismissed because he didn't want to move forward with it.
Now, did Chelsea work for you?
Chelsea worked for me. Yeah, she worked at Capri Pizza.
So she was. We can say that you right at this point so far. The only motive we could possibly see is that she's a disgruntled employee.
Oh, absolutely. We had one run in after another with her.
That's all I wanted to know on that.
Yes.
But so okay, let's continue.
Yeah. So after that court case, I had right away. Well, we can back up. Sorry, I just want to back up one straight. When the cops asked me to leave the house that day, and they gave me a domestic violence the DVP to leave. Immediately, I wasn't able to see my son, so I had to schedule a hearing to be able to see my son. And Master Love gave me supervised visitations until DCYF could do an investigation.
Okay, so you haven't committed a crime.
Never.
And yet you still needed supervised visits. Based upon what?
Based upon the allegations that people were calling into DCYF, some random names, they wouldn't leave their names, saying that I beat and abused my son and bit my son. However, when the officers went to my house, they thoroughly checked my son, and there was nothing on there.
And Master Love didn't take that evidence into consideration?
She said at the point that she had to stop, and she had to, with the DCY, had an open investigation. She just wanted to make sure that until they finished their assessment, that it was supervised, okay. Which was fine with me. Let's just get this wrapped up. Well, it took them a long time to wrap it up because they're so busy. However, the lady from DCY interviewed over 20 people on my behalf. She tried to mediate with Honey to see what was going on. She couldn't get anything out of Honey. She wrote the report that it came back unfounded.
Do you have a copy of that report?
I do.
Yeah.
And DCYF went to court on my behalf and recommended that in their documents that I would get a 50-50 custody of my son. That was their recommendation. However, on my final hearing, the judge wouldn't let DCYF testify at the hearing.
Why?
He said it was unneeded. He understood their position in the case. And a marital case is kind of out of their area. All
right, but what about the best interest of the child? Did anybody discuss that in the hearings?
We did actually. My entire hearings that I've had, besides this little thing about the abuse on a child, which it came back unfounded. Even going back to my final hearings, nobody has said one bad thing that I've ever done to my son. Honey's only witness, her mother, testified that I'm a good guy. She likes me. She just doesn't like things that I do sometimes, and she just wants Honey to go back to Las Vegas.
Okay, people are going, well, what are some of the things she doesn't like you to do?
She couldn't say anything. Okay. We asked and asked and asked, and she said, I can't say anything. So it ended at that. You don't do drugs or? I've never done drugs in my life. Okay. Yeah, I'm zero criminal record.
I'm sure quite people are going to say, well, what doesn't she like?
Yeah.
And is it the fact that you live in New Hampshire instead of Las Vegas? That's probably the big issue.
Absolutely. And that's it. So going back after all those scrimmages with the law enforcement and stuff like that, here comes June of 2012. I have a domestic violence case coming back up again because she wants to get it renewed. So I go back in front of Judge Kinghorn.
Doesn't there have to be a cause?
Yeah. Well, they're saying because that time that I was arrested, but I wasn't prosecuted for it because it was a balonious arrest, they feel that they could use this right here. So we go back. They fill out all this stuff. Honey fills out a statement. She makes it up. She says that I'd stalk her through the garage door at my house and do all this. I don't even have a garage at my house. There's no garage at my house. It's just lie after lie after lie. So I go to court. 3 officers show up at court that day with us. And we take the stand, and the judge asked the officers, okay, why wasn't Mr. Stevens arrested that day? This is going back to the original day. They said there's nothing to arrest him on. He didn't commit no crimes. He didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing wrong. Well, why do we have a domestic violence petition? Because she asked for one, and we had to give her one. You're the one that signed off on it over the phone, so we had to give her one. So here we are today. So after the judge bickering back and forth with the law enforcement for giving me a domestic violence petition. A few months prior to that, Judge Ryan and Master Love had told me to communicate with Honey through a parenting notebook, and left it open to communicating about my son, any type of interaction with our son. So I was writing weekly, and the guardian at litem also said to do this too. I was writing.
Who's the guardian at litem?
Well, her name is Karen Griswold. So I was told to communicate that way. Well, right away, Judge Kinghorn said, "You violated the domestic violence petition because I did not grant that in my order. You are not allowed to communicate through Honey. I don't care if another judge told you to. The order is through me." So now you have and so for having that.
Wait a minute. So one judge says to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Which judge? Judge Ryan?
Judge Ryan and Master Love.
Both of them
Both signed off on it.
And you have that document?
I do.
And yet, because both these judges said to do so, you're just complying with the court.
Absolutely.
Then it goes to a different court,
It does.
different judge, and this judge says, well, I don't recognize what Judge Master Ryan or Master Love did, therefore you've violated.
Correct.
Did you bring up to Judge, who are we talking about now? The judge?
Judge, we're talking about Judge Kinghorn is the one.
Kinghorn.
Kinghorn. I told him I actually wasn't allowed to take the stand at my own hearing, because if I would have taken the stand at that domestic violence petition hearing, I would have incriminated myself by telling the judge that I wrote in a notebook in violation of a domestic violence. So we cross-examined Honey, stating, "Weren't you told to write in the notebook by the other judges?" And Honey said, "Yes, I was." "So that's what you were doing? You were writing in the notebook back and forth with Jared weekly?" "Yes, I was." And yet he gave me a domestic violence petition again for another year that's supposed to expire this June, for writing in a notebook, a parenting notebook that was told we all signed off on it. Honey signed off on it. I signed off on it. Master Love, Judge Ryan, and Karen Griswold signed off on it.
Did Master Love and Master Ryan know that there was a pending
Absolutely, they knew that.
order? Okay.
They
domestic
did.
violence, okay.
They did.
And yet they didn't take into consideration that this would be a violation of
Well, the reason why they probably didn't is because Judge Kinghorn signed an order that states the domestic violence petition can be amended for a parenting plan. So they amended a parenting plan, but however, he doesn't feel that was amended per his order. He feels that didn't cover it.
Okay. Let's move on.
So that's where I am today. So that's what's going on in June.
How often are you seeing River?
So I see River every single Sunday and every other Saturday morning at 10 a.m. till Sunday at 6 p.m.
Now, are you divorced?
Well, we just finally got a divorce decree in the mail last week.
What is the parental plan, parenting plan that was ordered Where do you stand as far as custody?
Well,
50-50?
Well, in January, May of 2012, we started our final divorce hearing,
right?
And we were not able to finish that day.
Okay.
So now, January 31st of 2013, they gave us another hearing. At that hearing, we finished the day. After Honey was cross-examined, my witnesses took the stand. After we were all done, the judge stood up at the end of the hearing, and he said, "I want to say a special thank you to Jared's support. They've stayed unbiased throughout the whole process. They haven't taken either side. They've been there for both Honey, they've been there for Jared, and more importantly, they've been there for River." And he said, "Honey, it's going to be hopefully you'll consider in your best interest of making amends with that family." And my mother lives in Las Vegas, and she never gets to see my son because when Honey does travel over there, she won't allow her to see my son. So the judge ordered. My mother was in town. He said, "Please turn over, her grandchild, over to her for a little while she's here." Mm-hmm. And River actually had a pending surgery, to have his tonsils removed, and we actually couldn't really get along on that surgery because one doctor said he needed it, one doctor said he didn't. Honey was trying to keep me out of the loop, so she took me to court on an ex parte, and the judge ordered the surgery. So he told Honey at that hearing, the final hearing,
So your opinion meant nothing to the judge?
nothing at all.
Okay.
So he told Honey at that hearing he was basically done with the domestic violence petition stuff. There's no reason why we both can't be at the hospital for this surgery, and that we just need to work it out. And he said, no more going to the police department to meet Jared, Honey. You can go to his house and bring River.
Right. I might have missed something, but as far as the custody,
Yeah.
who has primary custody? Is it joint custody? Is it 50/50?
It's not. We've had 50-50 going all the way up to this point in regards to River, anything in regards to River.
You're not seeing him during the week?
I don't see him. I absolutely
so how's
don't.
that 50/50?
It's not. There's not.
How many hours do you think you see him on?
I see my son 6 times a month.
Okay, that's not 50/50.
That's not 50-50.
Are you paying child support?
I pay child support.
Have you been backlogged on child
Currently, I pay $88 a week in child support. At my last hearing, I fell behind a little over $1,000. That was just because of the astronomical legal fees and all these allegations I've had to defend.
Did she have any legal fees?
No, she was pro bono.
Did she have to sign an affidavit? Did she have to submit an affidavit to the court? Financial affidavit?
She did.
Okay.
And she actually was sued a few months back for not paying some bills, and she submitted $400 a week that she makes.
Right.
And she's actually...
so she's gainfully employed?
Oh, yeah. She works 2 jobs. My son he gets full services. He gets food stamps. He gets housing paid for. She gets her lawyer paid for. Daycare is paid for. She gets every service out there that you could possibly get on top of that.
And are these services offered to men?
No.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, nothing.
So, all right, so you got behind that, but you got caught up.
Yeah, I'm just about there, caught up. I'm trying hard. I'm just hovering right around the $800 mark of being behind.
Tell me a little bit about the guardian ad litem, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What was the guardian ad litem's name?
Karen Griswold.
Karen Griswold. Can I ask, do you feel like she gave you a good service?
I didn't get anything from her. So on July 12th, my birthday of 2011, I asked for a guardian ad litem, and the judge said, okay.
You asked for it?
I asked for it.
It wasn't court ordered?
No, not court ordered. I asked for a guardian ad litem, and the judge said, okay, you understand you have to pay for this. There's no more funding.
All right. Did Honey have to pay for half?
Nothing. She didn't have to pay for anything. The judge said, if you want it, then you're going to have to pay for it. So I said, that's not a problem. She asked me how much I could afford. I probably said, I don't know, $1,200 to $1,500. She said, you're going to have to bump that up a little more. It's probably going to be $1,800 to $2,000.
Do you have that in writing?
It's in the court transcripts.
Oh, interesting.
So I agreed to that. She said, okay, $1,800 to $2,000. I agreed to it. And 90 days later, she had 90 days to do her first report. The morning of the 90 days, right around there for our first court case coming up to get this going so I can get increased parenting time and get the ball rolling, she called my witnesses 20 minutes before court. She called my brother, and she called the family that I live with. And unfortunately, my brother answered, and the people, my other family members, they did not answer the phone. She went into the courthouse, and mind you, she had talked to all of Honey's witnesses prior to this. Right away, talked to all of them.
Okay, I'm going to just stop you right there. Unfortunately was a key word that you said. Unfortunately, she talked to your brother, but it was only 20 minutes before the court hearing?
Yeah.
Period.
Whoa.
And well, obviously, River's too young for school. Does River go to daycare at all?
River sits in a daycare from open to close.
Did the guardian ad litem go there at all?
No. No. She called them to ask them, what was going on with River there.
Yeah.
But
But she didn't make a visit. She didn't go check in.
No. She actually didn't interview anybody in person on the case. She called Honey's mother in Las Vegas via the telephone. She called anybody, whoever, the people that started the domestic violence thing, the girl Chelsea. Chelsea's mother that was trying to buy the pizza place that I bought, she called her. And Honey had known these people for less than 90 days that she called. Knew nothing. They never even met me. They knew nothing about me. They knew nothing about Honey.
Did the guardian ad litem give you a report of all her, what she has done?
She did. So that was in 90 days after July. We were the first time. She asked the judge for additional time.
Well, let me just back up a little bit more. Did the guardian ad litem say, I interviewed your family? That she interviewed your family?
She basically said that she tried to, and she was unable to. She ran out of time. She had phone problems.
In 90 days?
In 90 days. But she waited till the morning of court to try to call them. Not even the night before, a week, the day of
Within
court.
the 90 days, it was the day of
The day
court.
of court. Day of court.
So what was her finding?
Well, her finding was she asked the judge for an extension. We went back to court right around the 90 days, and she asked the judge, she said, I was unable to contact people. I need some more time. Judge Master Love said, what, 30 days? That should be sufficient. You've already had 90. And she said, no, I'm going to need another 90.
Based upon what?
That she just needs more time. Her father had passed away. She just needs more time.
All right, and so that more time cost you how much more money?
That more time, she's trying to bill me another $2,000. So basically, when the 90 days again came up, we were due back in court again.
Is she an attorney?
I don't know what she is. She's a guardian at litem. I don't know any background about her.
Right.
So then again, 90 days later, she called my witnesses again the morning of court. The morning before
Did
court.
you bring this up to
We did. We did. And so what happened in front of Master Love, she told the guardian not to work on the case anymore. She said, you know what, don't work on this case anymore. You know, you're...
In the meantime, are you separated from your son?
I am.
So you have 90 days, and 90 days, that's 180 days.
180 days.
And so, you know, I'm sorry that her father died, but if she can take care of or the relative died, but if she didn't take, if she couldn't do the case, then why are you separated from your child?
Absolutely.
This is kind of mind-boggling to me. And then on top of that, to insult you with a $4,000 bottom line bill for incompetency.
Yes.
And what was her name again?
Karen Griswold.
Where is she out of?
She's located out of Merrimack, New Hampshire.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting.
So going back, after Judge Love told her, you know, you don't need to work on this case no more. If somebody wants you to do something on this case, I can't imagine they would, she said. They can pay you as you work on the case. But Mr. Stevens had paid what he had said he could pay in court. So that was it.
Did the guardian ad litem's testimony add anything for or against your visitation rights? Or
She said that she told the judge when she took the stand at my final hearing that she absolutely could not make a decision on the case where my son should reside, who he should reside with, and what state he should reside in.
did you demand your money back?
I did not. And to this day, she's demanding me. She's taking me to court trying to sue me in regards to paying her. And I told Judge Ryan when I went in court that day when she took me to court for payment, I asked him to please review the transcripts of the court cases, and to my knowledge, they haven't.
Did you sign an agreement with the guardian ad litem?
I did.
Do you have a copy of that?
I do.
All right. Did you? All right. Interesting. I would like to see that. Okay. So now we're moving along in the case. In that 180 days, there were supervised visits.
The supervised visitation actually ended on that July 12th. The supervised visitation went away, and the reason is because it was unfounded, and DCYF said it was unfounded, and I was supposed to get increased parenting time throughout the process of the extension. So they issued another court date for me to come back to court in the meantime, and we went to court, and the courthouse didn't understand why we were there. They said, we don't know, why are you guys here? Well, we're on the docket for a case today for more parenting time. It said it right on the docket, parenting plan, and they said, no, that isn't why you're here today. We don't know why you're here today. We're canceling the case, and so I didn't get increased parenting time. So that happened. That was another court date that happened.
Do you still have the same attorney?
I switched attorneys probably in November of 2011, I would say November 2011, I switched attorneys, and I'm represented by a different law firm.
Are they? What is their opinion as to what's going on at this point?
Well, their opinion is the last day of court. They thought went very well in my behalf. It was very clean. The court case was clean. Like I said, the judge got up and thanked my entire family, thanked us all, and said, I'll get this out as soon as possible. Honey knew that she'd be staying here after his motions, and that we really just needed to work together. There's been multiple times that my kid's been hospitalized throughout the hospital throughout this process. Me and Honey have gone to the hospital together and hung out with our son together. And then she goes to the judge and says, I never went to the hospital before with him ever. And I have witnesses that testified to the judge.
I'm sure there's video.
There is. So the judge was really done with her. We felt really good about the last day. Honey's attorney was basically, yeah.
I mean, are we seeing an unstable person here?
Oh, it's horrible.
Okay, so is the judge seeing this?
Well,
if the judge is saying, look, I'm all done with this, I mean, after a while, the lies show a pattern of there's a mental problem. Not, there's something wrong here.
They do.
Can we ever know the truth with this person? And if we can't know the truth on a consistent basis, then are you fit to be, 50-50? Maybe she should be giving the visitations rather than the father. I don't understand. Have you lied to the court at all?
I've never lied to the court. And one of the judge's findings in the final petition that he gave me, he said that I lied on the stand about taking my son to Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. Well, I've never been to Pittsburgh, New Hampshire in my life. And I proved that with phone records and testimony from witnesses that were with me that weekend. Mm-hmm. But Honey said Jared took our son to Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. Judge believed her.
So hearsay is above evidence, regular, clear and convincing evidence.
Absolutely.
So that seems to be a pattern. Interesting. So, all right, so there's another hearing coming up.
There is, actually. So after that hearing on the 31st of January, we felt really good about the hearing, and he basically told Honey, you need to make amends, and I'm not no more drops off at the police department. You can go to Jared's house and exchange the kid, mm-hmm. and until this DVP thing's all gone away. So in the meantime, Honey's caused a lot of issues from January 31st till now. As far as the surgery, I showed up at the hospital on the morning River was having surgery, and she had told the physicians that River doesn't have a father in his life. He has a part-time father and a kind of a weekend dad. So when I showed up in there, they're like, "Well, you can't be here. You're not allowed to be here." Well, little did she know my brother works at the hospital. It's kind of a distance brother. We don't really talk a lot over the years, more just via text or something like that. He moved away and very busy. He was in the law enforcement for 20 years in Nashua. So she didn't know that she was talking all this nonsense right in front of these people at the hospital that happens to be my family and people that are not going to buy her games. So I showed him a document from Honey's attorney that Honey had agreed for me to be at the hospital and there'd be no problems. And they read that and they were just blown away over the accusations that Honey had started. So they immediately said, Jared, it's really too late to get you in there to see River. We don't want to get him wound up before surgery. Can you just do us a favor and just hang out, go grab Starbucks, and we'll set you up down there with somebody. We'll give you a phone. Mm-hmm. Right when River's out of surgery, we're going to sneak you in the back room. We're going to sneak you through some hallways and stuff, and you're going to see River right away.
Okay.
We're done with we're not going to play her games here. So after I went in to see River, he was pretty upset, and I told the nurses, I said, why don't we let his mom see him now? I've seen him for about 10, 15 minutes. So immediately, Honey got to see River. I walked away. I went back down and waited, and Honey had finally agreed. She said, Jared can come in here and see River. So I went back in there to see River. She handed him off to me and made sure he was comfortable with me. Everything was no problems. And she left the room with her boyfriend that was there. And this other Chelsea's sister that was there, they left the room. And I sat with River for about an hour.
Chelsea still.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Can we get her out of the story here? I mean, she's joined to the hips here, huh?
Oh, yeah. It just doesn't stop.
All right.
So with all this going on,
is he all right?
Well, after the surgery, the reason why Honey wanted surgery is because he always was getting colds and stuff. And so
Is this the tonsil thing?
Yeah, for the tonsils. That's what the surgery is for. So from the tonsil surgery in the beginning January, February area, till now, River's been hospitalized and sick 5 times after the surgery because that wasn't the reason why. All wintertime I get my son back with no jacket on. She just gives him to me however. He could be, just in a T-shirt walking around when I get him. And those were my concerns all along, is the welfare of my child being left. I see posts on Facebook, my kid's out at midnight, 1 in the morning with people that she's leaving them with. And I brought this to the court's attention, and they just push it aside like it's not a big deal.
You downloaded that picture?
Oh, I try to keep everything on Facebook.
Okay, because you can download that stuff, right?
Yeah, I try to print off all their Facebook stuff. So that's going on. And then prior to that, about a year ago, I had asked Honey, can we get River enrolled in T-ball sports? I'm a huge fan of sports. Had a cousin that played on the Red Sox growing up. and just a big fan. So, and she said no.
Who was the cousin?
Phil Plantier. So it's just a big battle trying to get her to let me sign him up. So this year she agreed. She said, that is great. Sign him up. This was after court, after January 31st, because she knew it was over.
This year.
Of this year. She knew it was over. She knew she was staying here. She knew River was staying here. She said, Jared, you can sign him up in your town. That's where we wanted to raise River to begin with. Sign him up in your town. And then right before his first practice, she said, you're not going to any of his games. You're not going. I don't want you there. My boyfriend will go with me. Well, I said, I'm going to be going. So I immediately filed an ex parte to be able to have some sports enrollment with my son at his games. I'm his father, and I feel that I should be there. So I filed that ex parte, and a week after the ex parte, and that ex parte hearing is coming up on May 10th, next Friday. About a week later, I received a final order in the mail for my divorce and custody, and he signed off on everything Honey wanted. He said she can move back to Las Vegas and move back there. And going back to that, Honey doesn't have a place. Her parents' house is in foreclosure in Las Vegas. They had a second house that went to foreclosure in Las Vegas. She has nothing stable in Las Vegas at all, except maybe she might be able to get an old job back. So the judge said you can move back there, and if Jared wants to see River, he can see every other month. He can travel out and see River from Saturday morning to Sunday night. No cost hindered to you, Honey. Jared pays for everything. He can see River for Father's Day if he wants to go out there. He can see River for Christmas every other year if he'd like to go out there. And he could see him for 1 week in the summertime if he goes to Las Vegas. No parental rights in regards to custody. You know, she has full say on everything. I have no say. As far as if Honey decides to live in New Hampshire, I can see him every other weekend and then every other Wednesday for about 2 or 3 hours. Nothing more, nothing at all. I told the judge in all my filings that I make about $400 a week. He ordered me to pay about a little over $300, $330 a week in child support and the small arrearage that I have. He told me that I need to get $250,000 life insurance policy on my son payable to her. And just some other medical things, $211 a week towards medical expenses, and no rights to my son. And with all this being said, you know, she's on welfare and on government services and getting food stamps from the state when I own a restaurant. She's getting free daycare when my schedule during the week, I have to be at my store. It's a restaurant, but it's completely flexible. My son has his own room at my store with TVs, with gaming systems. He has his whole entire setup at my store where he can be. Honey actually put a couch in my store when we were together in my office, and he has all that as his disposal. But it's so much easier for them to just keep her on the system.
Is Honey going to move back?
Honey's going to move back.
And so that means you will not be able to see your son?
Correct.
Who is this judge?
It's Judge Michael Ryan. He's the 4th judge I've had on the case throughout 2 different courthouses in New Hampshire. We get bounced around from judge to judge, whoever's on the stand that day.
Did the judge say that this is in the best interest of the child?
He did. He said that he felt that I had no family members in New Hampshire, and that Honey had family and friends in Las Vegas.
Who is this?
That's my sister, Christine.
Is she from New Hampshire?
She is. My entire family lives in New Hampshire. I have about 6 different family members that own dealerships, RV dealerships, car dealerships in New Hampshire, from pool companies in New Hampshire.
And the judge in the order said that and it's in writing.
It's in writing.
Because you have no family here in New Hampshire.
It would be in the best interest of River.
And we're being watched. The studio people can't see, but in the audience is obviously your sister. And actually, she did testify to that degree that she's your sister.
I have over 25 to 30 nieces and nephews and cousins for my son.
So is that order from the judge then wrong?
It's absolutely wrong.
In that, based upon the fact that you have no family here in New Hampshire, I'm going to give her all these rights. Do you feel that you've been discriminated against?
Absolutely. I feel that I've been ran through the paper mill of the court system. They're overloaded with work, understaffed, and they're just pushing cases aside and pushing them through. Let's just look at it. If Honey's allowed to move back to Las Vegas, it's out of New Hampshire courts. It's one less case they have to worry about. She files over there. She gets them to import a foreign order. That order is now in their courthouse, away from New Hampshire. The judges don't have to worry about it. It's gone. Nothing in this case is in the best interest of my son. I'm a father, a dedicated father.
All right, and so there's the attorneys that you have right now. What are they asking you to do?
Well, you know, they're basically telling me there's not a lot of hope, and you know, to reach out, you know, and to reach out and get opinions and see what else. But these judges are writing these orders on their opinion based on no law, so it's almost impossible to go back in there and appeal it because it's based on opinion and not a law, and that's what they're telling me. And all their opinions are proved wrong in court, and it's well documented.
This is why we had on the ballot CA-CR 26, because rules have the effect of law. There's nobody making these judges accountable. Nobody. You had the right, you had the ability by voting for CA-CR 26. In 1983, it was put on the ballot that the Supreme Court justices shall have administrative rule. The last part of that in the ballot was not on the ballot. We proved it. That these rules shall have the effect of law. So judges can make rules that have the effect of law. Rule 1.2, waiver of rules in the interest of justice. Rule 3.9 takes away your right to appeal in these matters. Folks, we have to do something about this corrupt court system. And I'm calling it corrupt. We're hearing these stories over and over and over again. And there's discrimination. And we are documenting that. Thank you for watching Speak Up. Is there a way that people can get in touch with you to help you, if there's a way to help you?
You can. My name is Jared Stevens. I own Capri Pizza in Hudson, New Hampshire. My personal phone number is 603-860-5505.
Again, thank you for watching Speak Up. If you want to become a sponsor of the show, if you find value here, please contact us through speakupnh@gmail.com. Or if you want to help out with the Center of Redress of Grievances, LLC, give us a shout, Center for Redress at gmail.com, or just send us a letter, P.O. Box 207, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03061. Again, that's the Center for Redress of Grievances. And if you have an issue with the courts, your man, woman, grandmother, if you have an issue, we're imploring you, please contact us. We want to hear your story. Until next week, thanks. Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back.